the problems inside of Middle America might soon be met by very aggressive state actions that could be taking federal military forces and sending them off to Venezuela and Mexico, as the plans are already being drawn up. As Joe Rogan is talking about how he is stunned by the possibility of an invasion that soon might be happening of Mexico and or Venezuela. As we have some very interesting comments by their leadership that really isn't too happy about an uptick of U.S. military special forces members in their neck of the woods here, as clearly Donald Trump is a very unique president that's willing to take very kind of unique actions to deal with the problems that he sees as the biggest issues that he wants to, of course, deal with. What measures will he take in order to deal with those problems? Well, that's what we are going to be discussing, specifically in context with this Joe Rogan type of clip here surrounding the latest information and shock of Latin American leadership here, as we have this from the New Republic here that already is talking about, yeah, he's ready to invade, quote, a U.S. ally. Is it really a U.S. ally? We'll get into that and a lot more all here on this independent media broadcast. If you appreciate these type of nuanced conversations, subscribe and click the notification button. We greatly appreciate all the time that you are spending with us. Now, the White House actually did authorize the Pentagon to use military force against Latin American drug cartels in a sweeping directive, which a lot of people says violates sovereignty of America's southern border neighbor. Now, Donald Trump has made very strong demands, especially to Mexico, especially to Canada, saying, listen, close your borders. We don't want any of the drugs coming in. Now, clearly, as you saw through Philadelphia, the drugs are coming in. Now, if you're really looking for the biggest kind of purveyors of drug trafficking, the biggest type of players in drug trafficking, you look at the CIA. Right, you look at poppy production in Afghanistan. You look at Iran-Contra. You look at the crack epidemic. Right, you look at that journalist that allegedly took himself out, that exposed all of it with the real Ray Ricky Ross. You look at that specific story, and you're like, okay, this is how we really deal with it. But it's fair to assume that countries like China and other countries who do not like America are profiting off of our demise, off of people's drug use, off of what people are calling Opium Wars 2.0 with an Uno reverse card. Now, is that exactly what's going on here? Some people believe it is. We have this from nationalsecurityaction.org talking about how Trump wants to go to war in Mexico, as people are saying, but he doesn't understand what he's proposing. I think he does. As Trump demanded battle plans to attack Mexico. Now, there are some members of Congress that are like, yep, let's go to war in Mexico. As, listen, Mexico is saying, no, you're not going to do this. Why? Well, there's a long historical record of a lot of the Mexican political leadership being tied in to some of the kind of criminal elements and organizations that Donald Trump wants to snuff out and stopped. Now, clearly, it's a new day and age with Donald Trump in political office. Of course, he's willing and able to act in very unconventional ways, as he just signed another $850 million arms deal with Ukraine, as he's going to be giving them extended range attack munitions, air-launched missile systems that's going to be delivered very soon, that Europe's going to be paying for. Okay, Europe's paying for it, but we're still having major escalations here with this particular conflict. Now, with Trump now actively and seriously considering going in to Mexico, we have a very interesting conversation that happened between Joe Rogan and Ed Calderon. Now, you could listen to this podcast. We decided to play a clip of it, as, of course, the two discussed the possibilities of this happening in more specific detail. They also discussed how it would be sort of like Vietnam. And a lot of people are like, I kind of don't believe that. But a lot of people are saying the cartels also do have a presence here inside of the United States. And if they do decide to be in a type of bigger perpetual conflict, that this will entangle America and endanger American citizenry. Some people say that that is an over-exaggeration, and that simply just won't happen here. Here's a part of the conversation that I found interesting.
When did the cartels really start gaining power?
I think the 70s and 80s is when we start seeing the formation of the first large organizations and federations that are working to produce and or to traffic substances through Mexico up into the United States.
Was it originally cocaine?
Marijuana. I think originally heroin actually was at the start or the initiation of a lot of this stuff. I think.
And where were they getting the heroin?
As soon as there was a war on drugs, people were like, oh, there's an initiative here, just like there was when there was a ban on alcohol. That's what gave rise to the criminal kind of gangs in Chicago. This idea of what I essentially see as a government racket. As the governments are pretty much involved, just like they were back in the day, even with booze. They were producing some of the booze, but also at the same time, they were poisoning some of the booze and killing American citizens at the same time. That's the type of insanity here. Now, before going into more of Ed Calderon's kind of comments here, he's a former law enforcement officer and now a security consultant. Before getting into that specific realm, we wanted to tell you about wearechange.shop. We got a lot of really great supplements that are really awesome and incredible for you. One of the ones that I personally really like is ashwagandha. Really powerful stuff. I don't recommend taking it more than a month. Some doctors don't take it more than 3 months. It depends on what you're using it for, but it's really great at getting rid of cortisol and lowering your stress levels. If you're dealing with a lot of stress, I had a friend that's dealing with a lot of stress that just lost a very close loved one that I'm, helping out. And I'm like, first thing, I'm like, check out Take Calm. I'm like, just take it. Here's Take Calm. Boom. Here's the chill ball. I'm like, that's yours. Now, I recommended to this person that they take the takecalm.com, that they take it whenever they feel uneasy. And then I recommended ashwagandha with their last meal of the day. Why? Because it also is being reported that it helps people get deep and REM sleep and go to sleep. I also recommended another dose because, again, when you're dealing with a lot of stress, especially when it comes to losing someone, very close to you, I'm like, okay, listen, I got to hone in here. And I really have to try to deal with this situation as best as I can. And that's how I've dealt with these types of situations before. And it worked for me. It might work for you. I don't know. But if you're dealing with a lot of stress, I know a lot of women that get, that cortisol levels are just through the roof. A lot of women are just inundated with soft kill weapons all the time, and they spray them and put them on their face all the time. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you doing all this? And then they're like, I'm anxious all the time. Gee, I wonder why, Becky. I wonder why. Is it like, I'm like, what? Becky, excuse me. I think I know why. Now you got to unwind all your bad behaviors and bad decisions there, Becky. That's going to take a long time, and you got to do that with exercise, proper diet, meditation, not stressing. But ashwagandha, it totally is a cheat sheet for me, and I like it. I enjoy it. It might help you. It's helping my friend. So check it out, wearechange.shop. Now, let's go back to this segment here, as, of course, Ed Calderon has a big extensive ties towards American and Latin American type of security, police type of experiences here, as he specifically talked about how China is weaponizing Mexican cartels against America. Right? And this is the guy who described a situation that if America goes in here, it will potentially look like Vietnam. Now, why is that an interesting argument to make? We'll tell you why in a little bit, but I think there's some legitimacy since we're financing for the training of the cartels without our full understanding of it.
They were planting poppy in the Sierra for the war effort, apparently, for the Americans because they were running out of shortage of morphine, so they needed a place to plant it. And that's one of the places where they kind of started like, oh, you can grow this here. And people started getting ideas.
This is the Vietnam War?
Yeah, around, yeah. This
that's
Vietnam, World War II era. That's when you started seeing.
That's when we saw a lot of drug trafficking too, especially from U.S. military service members that were getting high and then bringing it back. And then they had the hippie high era. But also, I think a lot of that, especially with the LSD stuff and the get high era, was, I think, financed by the intel agencies, personally myself too, from everything that I read, everything that I researched throughout the years. And I'm like, this sure is strange. Sure is very weird. And there's a big cultural shift and push towards go get high. And I'm like, it's almost as if there's a experiment running on everyone.
Seeing the initiation of like people planting certain things.
So 40s, 50s, 60s,
50s, I'd say 50s, yeah.
Wow. Well, it's like Vietnam itself is connected to heroin.
Yeah.
Because that's the dirty secret about why we were interested in that whole area of Vietnam. And that was a trafficking area.
Yeah, yeah. The Golden Triangle.
Yeah, and coincidentally, a lot of people got insanely rich somehow or another connected to that. But we had to be over there to stop communism or something.
And it's an interesting point you bring up of Vietnam because it has something to do, or elements of it remind you of Mexico. Mexico has been a place that has been ruled over by a single party for 80 years, if that, the PRI. And then it went through its democratic period, and now we have other parties coming into play.
Now, he's kind of hinting at here corruption, as I think it's fair to say that there's been a lot of corruption in places like Ukraine. And I think a lot of predatory, bad multinational corporations and intelligence agencies took advantage of that. I think Dr. Fauci took advantage of that, especially with his kind of gain of function weaponization biowarfare program that he was running inside of that country. Now, Ukraine, whether they like it or not, there's a lot of foreign mercenaries. And we mentioned this during the start of the conflict. We were like, it's kind of weird how there's whole entire Spanish divisions that are habla en español. Órale, ándale, arriba. I was like, why are we watching this? And I'm like, wait, what's going on here? That doesn't sound like Slavic. That doesn't sound like Ukrainian. That doesn't sound like Russian. That sounds like Speedy Gonzalez is there. Why is Speedy Gonzalez there? Oh yeah, a lot of mercenary groups from Latin America are fighting as mercenary groups for the Ukrainians. Now, it's fair to assume here, even as DefenseNews.com writes, drug cartel operatives snuck into Ukraine for drone training. Now, drones are a major new form of warfare that is extremely efficient, extremely devastating. And it's fair to say that the cartels, they're very smart, that have unlimited supply of money, are saying, look, Pedro Gonzalez, let's go. Andale. Go fight one tour. Be a mercenary. Be a mercenary. Just a little bit. And then learn all the tactics with the latest and greatest forms of warfare. And then come on back. And then teach all of us what you learned. And that's exactly what's going on here. As Ukrainian counterintelligence services are investigating now the infiltration of Latin American drug cartel members into the country's International Legion, which operates. And by the way, the International Legion for the Ukrainian military is one of the most proficient, one of the most strongest, one of the most, quote, badass military formations when it comes to their ability to be extremely effective, especially when it comes to repelling the Russians. I mean, the tools, the tech, the operatives that they have, the way that they're able to train, all of course done through the CIA. CIA, again, training drug cartel organizations on the southern border. They did that before, by the way. American Special Forces, by the way, took an elite police division within the Mexican police force, and they said, we're going to create the most elite of the elite fighting force in Mexico to deal with the cartels. And then when they trained them, that elite police force became their own cartel. And they're the ones that implemented a lot of terror tactics. And they're the ones that were filming, torturing people, and got rid of this kind of mafioso, gangster style code that respected the innocents, right? And then once all of this kind of decorum, this mafia decorum, was out the door, once women and children were now targeted, once torture and these type of like incredibly gory, insane, torturous videos were released, that's when we saw the war on drugs kind of kick up and become a lot more just absolutely crazy and insane here. Now, these type of cartel organizations now learning the latest and greatest drone tech and drone training tech highlights a very severe situation because we're dealing with hardened, trained, experienced military operatives that, of course, will go up against America. Now, the American, now listen, if the cartels really want to terrorize the American people, they can so very easily, especially with this latest drone tech that they learned, especially with their infiltration of American society through the open borders that we had here. So a lot of people are saying this fight between the cartels and the United States won't work out too well, as the United States just sent warships to patrol international waters in order to deal with a lot of the drug trade that finances these kind of cartels here. This could be what a lot of people see as the first initial steps that Donald Trump has taken in order to stop the financial money coming in for these criminal gangs and organizations that he's going to want to launch war with. As of course, just like we see throughout American doctrine, first you launch the sanctions. Once you launch the sanctions, once you take away the money, then once you bankrupt them, then when they're struggling to pay for stuff, that's when you come in. And a lot of people are saying this is the first step of many steps that Donald Trump is going to be making within the next 4 years, as of course him deploying 4,000 U.S. troops, spy planes, submarines, drones that are already flying in Mexico, in Venezuela, getting a lay of the land, getting a perspective into their forces, troop mobilization numbers, as people are making the arguments that the governments of Venezuela and Mexico are financed through a lot of these illicit, illegal activities, through the American tax, through the American druggie that buys up their drugs that are shipped in from China, which is an interesting type of situation, as these warships definitely are bringing up a very more kind of serious situation. Now, Gateway Pundit writes how the Mexican government is actually weak on cartels, as the U.S. military deployed to the Caribbean for drug interdiction is going to make a dent in this type of cycle that continues here. As the Mexican president says, hey, stop it. Stop sending U.S. forces here to stop the drug trade. As she described how U.S. forces in the region are, quote, unwelcome in her country. As it looks like the Mexican government is sort of cooperating, sort of not cooperating with the Trump administration. And Trump says, look, you won't cooperate with me? We'll just do whatever we want. And we're going to have a more aggressive crackdown on here. Now, there's an opposition senator that just told Fox News that Mexico, and more importantly, Mexicans do want help. And this is what she had to say on Fox News just a couple of moments ago.
Oh, a narco state?
As the anchor asked, hey, is Mexico a narco state?
Mexico, a narco state?
Yes, it is. And we all Mexicans know about it. And Mexicans are afraid of the alliance between the Mexican government and the cartels that have infested our nation.
Can you explain this alliance between the president, her party, the Morena party, and the cartels?
Yes, the party has financed, has given, the cartels have given so much money to these politicians, narco politicians of Morena, to get into office, to get the power.
This could be why Mexico has been run by one political party for an extremely long time. Now, Trump, he looks like he's not playing around here. A lot of people say the plan's already made. The decision's already been made. Is that the right decision to make here? in my kind of nuanced perspective, I think, if you really want to deal with this, listen, the war on drugs is stupid. Doubling down on the war on drugs, I think, is only going to make the situation that much worse. Now, Donald Trump is talking about extraordinary kind of measures that he's saying won't be playing into the war on drugs. It's going to eliminate it all. Will that radical type of plan work? As I have to stick to my guns, and I think the best way is to not finance criminal gangs and organizations and allow people to make personal decisions with their own bodies and choices that they're going to make anyway. Some people say that's pretty radical. I think state intervention, war, government financing, and paying for both ends of this conflict is a little bit more ridiculous, especially with the huge, tremendous amount of life loss that's going to be practiced here. But I'll make my argument a little bit more clear, a little bit more better. But where do you stand? Do you think Donald Trump's kind of assessment and moves here that a lot of people say are just the beginning stages of this war that are going to be happening here, is that the right move to make here to deal with this problem? Or do you believe in an alternative solution, just like I do, that says, hey, let's stop financing these guys with horrible government policies that incentivizes mafias and governments and cartels, and by letting go of the war on drugs? What is the right move and maneuver to make here? The answer? You tell me. I love you guys. Stay tuned for more. Thank you so much for supporting WeAreChange.shop. Thank you so much for getting our supplements on WeAreChange.shop. Beautiful and amazing human beings. Stay tuned for more. I'll hear exclusively on YouTube.com/WeAreChange.